Yeah, welcome to KKTV. And on our studio, we have our guests, Herman Manyora. Bwana Herman Manyora, habari yako?
Salama kabisa.
Habari ya Kenya?
Kenya tu wazima, tunashukuru Mungu.
Okay.
Naam.
Now, what can you tell us about yourself?
Like what? Like I'm Manyora, I'm a Kenyan, I love this country, and I'm asking all Kenyans in America to come back home.
Okay. You want them to come back?
Yes,
Yeah, they
yes.
would love to come back.
To help in the nation building.
Yeah, probably when you are a president.
Yeah. No, even now you should come to make me one.
Okay. Well, we really appreciate what you do, more especially in the media, trying to educate the Kenyans about politics. I know you are a very passionate person.
Thank you.
Now, and the reason why we call you here, we have a BBI statement whereby the High Court declared it null and void.
Correct.
So, what is your position? What can you say about the High Court ruling about the BBI?
Just to put it in perspective, of course, BBI was an initiative by Raila Odinga, the opposition leader and the president, who crossed ranks to end the violence and the chaos in the country after the elections of 2019. And it had gotten to a point where they were turning the initiative after engagement with the public for about 2 years or so into a bill that will use Article 257 of our Constitution that engages the public in amending the Constitution through what is called a popular initiative. So there are many petitioners who didn't want it on a number of grounds and issues. I think there were 8 petitioners who moved to court, and the court declared the process null and void, like you have said. So now we are at the stage of the various players who feel unhappy with the ruling have moved to the appeal court, and the hearing will start on the 29th and run all to 29th of June, running up to 2nd of July. Yeah, that's where we are today in terms of that is where we are.
So I know you are a political analyst. You have been into this. What do you think the High Court erred in their judgments?
You know, I have very strong opinion on this matter. I totally disagree with the judgment. And I'm one of those people who believe this judgment cannot stand scrutiny in a court of appeal. For the simple reason that the Kenyan Constitution, which people fought so hard for so long, people lost their lives, blood was shed, and people even lost families and so on and so forth. Property was lost in the process, many years. We gave ourselves the Constitution in 2010. But at the same time, aware that our Constitution is meant, or law in general is meant to serve man, we are aware that we might need from time to time, perhaps, to amend the Constitution. So the Constitution provided very clear procedure that we would use in amending the Constitution when that time comes. There were even safeguards in terms of what articles of the Constitution, what provisions could not be amended by Parliament. That for those particular aspects of the Constitution, you could only do so. In other words, you could only effect the amendment through a referendum by involving the people of Kenya. But this judgment doesn't seem to follow that. The judgment invites us, one, into believing that there are parts of the Constitution that you cannot amend. And they borrow this from Germany. Fortunately for Germans, those provisions are clearly stated, Article 1 to 20. In our case, they are not there. And they could not tell us which ones. So that is a hurdle you are putting in the way of Kenyans amending their constitution. It means every time you want to amend the constitution of Kenya, you must go to the court to tell you now, this one you can amend, this one you cannot amend. I find that that's not what the constitution really wanted. Secondly, even after you have been allowed to amend, then they tell you do not follow the process provided for by the constitution. They are inviting us to follow the same process we followed to get the constitution we have. And I'm arguing with the court and with the judges and other Kenyans. That was a war. We were at war. We were in the trenches. We were fighting to have the constitution. You cannot invite us to use the same method and procedure in amending the constitution. That's all. Because the constitution already has,
Yeah, as you have talked about Article 257, I mean, it starts with Article 255.
Yes.
And then that's Article 255 talks about what parts of the constitution can be amended through a referendum and others can be amended through parliament. But then Article 57, 56 and 256 and 257 clearly says that we have two ways, popular initiative and parliamentary initiative.
Yes.
Now, the BBI was trying to say that the president, it does not give the president powers to initiate the amendment of the constitution. That's where the jinx is.
But that is the opinion of the court. It may not be right, because nowhere in the constitution is it stated who can and who can't initiate. It's not stated. So it is their interpretation and their opinion. My opinion is different. In fact, contrary to their opinion, in a presidential system such as ours, the president is not always in sync with parliament or the judiciary. We can see already there's a war between the judiciary and the executive.
Yeah.
So far, we have not had a serious war between the legislature and the executive. So you are assuming every time the president wants to amend the constitution, parliament will agree with him. They may refuse. And the open to him will be 257. Just like other Kenya. He may want something good. And I've given this example, my friend. Many times I've spoken on TV and my YouTube channel. I've said, many Kenyans are not happy with the parliament. Our MPs or legislatures are so greedy. Supposing the president wanted to save Kenyans from these greedy MPs by abolishing the Parliamentary Service Commission that gives them the power to budget for money and misuse it the way they want. And even reduce salaries on peace to manageable levels where a poor third world country ought to be. MPs will not agree with him. So the president can then amend the constitution using the popular initiative. So one, nowhere is it stated who can and who can't initiate. It is not so much who initiates. It is more of a facility offered that anytime you want to change the constitution, you approach parliament if you are an outsider. Even if you are an MP and you are sure your colleagues, fellow members of parliament will not agree with you. You can go through that route. It does not state who. It is a facility offered that once you are convinced parliament will not do what you want, you can go outside parliament and still amend the constitution.
Now, you see, the thing is, I mean, the BBI, everybody appreciates what the BBI did. That is from the handshake. It brought peace in the country, and even the political temperatures went down. I mean, that's something we have to appreciate, that Kenya we have now with the handshake between Raila and Uhuru Kenyatta changed Kenya for the better for everybody. But now, other quarters, they believe that it could have remained just a task force, like a reconciliation to bring it together, to find ways of bringing peace in Kenya, that it was not supposed to amend the constitution. And that the articles, the 9 articles they were talking about inclusivity, they could have still worked as a recommendation to the government to act on it, but not to change the constitution. What do you say about that?
You see, that is correct. That's quite correct. But that is what somebody might think. Others might think differently. You might think so. I might think differently. Yeah. Really is a question of opinion. What is your opinion? Do you think BBI should have stopped at the level of recommendation to government to initiate policy changes, administrative changes, legislative changes, and leave the constitution alone? Yeah. Or do you agree with the proponents of BBI that they needed to change the constitution? It's just a question of opinion. There's no problem. Anybody can think what they want. But now when you now use that thinking to stop the amendment of the constitution, that's where you get wrong. Because the High Court misdirected itself.
Now
when you want to amend the constitution, the issue of BBI does not come in. You see, and I don't know whether this is how the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court would see it. Actually, we are discussing this because this is America. Even in Kenya, would have stated a bit because we seem to misinterpret this sub judice rule. But whatever the case, I am saying the amendment of the constitution from a legal point of view starts when you go to the IEBC. What happened before that is immaterial to the law. Yeah. It is neither here nor there. It's to the law is immaterial.
So let us assume that in the Court of Appeal, you say the case will maybe end by July, or it will start, the hearing will start in July.
It starts on June 29th and runs into July, but 2nd of July.
So when is likely the ruling?
There are two possible ways of arriving at a possible date. One is that going by practice, our courts take too long. Almost what I would call an inordinate delay in making decisions.
Yeah.
So if you go by past practice, then they will take like 30 days or so after the hearing. So you are looking at end of July, early August, up to mid-August. That's one way of looking at it. There's another way of looking at it, that this is something of national importance. It is urgent because there are timelines. And if you find later that BBI ought not to have been stopped by the High Court, and yet you have eaten into their time. So if you are informed by that thinking, you could then speed up. And I can see this within 2 weeks, they could give a judgment. And I'm convinced and persuaded so because the High Court judgment was a very thorough judgment. Very few judges in this country render their judgment in that kind of with that kind of presentation. So clear. The issues are clear. They are isolated. They are distilled, and pronouncements in terms of declarations are made in such a clear manner that the Court of Appeal need not waste time. But there's nothing. Everything's so clear. Nothing is ambiguous in the judgment. Okay, it's one of the best written judgments in this country.
Okay, let's say by mid-July, they have given a verdict and they have overturned the High Court ruling.
Yes.
That the BBI has to go forward. Do you think they have time to do that before the next general election?
It again depends on how you look at it. You could also argue that they could move to the Supreme Court. And the same argument I have heard that this case is so well argued at the High Court. When it gets to the Court of Appeal, it will be further distilled into something the Supreme Court can read within one morning and within a week give the judgment. So within July, they can actually come up with a decision up the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
You could say there is no time.
Okay.
Again, if you do things the Kenyan way, where simple things are made to look very complex. And where complex things are treated with simplicity. This is the bane of this country. And I think Africa and third world. So people will tell you, If you want to delimit constituencies, for example, you need time. So you ask them. If you are moving voters from a certain ward to merge with the voters in another constituency in the process of realigning the boundaries, are you moving those people physically, or is that the touch of a button? So Kenya, sometimes they amuse me. You have an election, you have a by-election today, and the polling stations close at 5 Kenyan time. Tomorrow, midday, tomorrow, they are still, results are not out. You wonder, this is stupid, real. Those kind of things. So if you go that way, there will be no time. But if we move like the modern world, like we are in the 21st century, with all the benefits of technology, there is all the time you need to do anything.
You see, one of the things I would have to ask you about this High Court ruling.
Yes.
Do you think the judiciary was revenging to the president because he had failed to appoint the 41 judges to the Supreme Court?
You know, you and I know that judges are learned men and women who make decisions on the basis of law and evidence and facts placed before them.
Yeah.
But again, you and I live in this world, in the real world. Sometimes we're all human.
Yeah.
Justice, not just the 41 judges. Justice Maraga, and indeed the judiciary for that matter, had pronounced itself on BBI.
Okay.
Maraga, before leaving, had warned the courts about letting the judiciary get away with the executive get away with certain things. They must stand their ground. And the judiciary, through the Chief Justice, was very clear that they did not support the BBI. This is not something here whispered or no. That was a firm position of Justice Maraga, that the BBI is wrong. Of course, the issues of ombudsman and maybe one or two other things. So for that reason, you could say, and then what you are saying, the judges not being appointed, it could have influenced. But I choose to believe that judges are men and women beyond such a narrow considerations. This is their considered opinion. Only according to me, I do not agree with them.
And then here comes another issue that people are complaining about, that the way Justice Martha Koome was appointed. Some believe that the people in JC a majority were from the same region she comes from, and therefore they feel that it's a perpetuation of tribalism in Kenya. What could you say about that?
Yeah, there have been murmurs of that kind. They have even gone beyond that. They are saying, look here, as we see today, the three arms of government are headed by people from Mount Kenya: the executive, President Uhuru Kenyatta; the judiciary, Martha Koome; the legislature, the speaker is Muturi, JB Muturi. All the three heads of government are from that region. So, and then people have gone also further to say the same region has produced is overrepresented in the Judicial Service Commission. The numbers are obvious there to see. So you can say that, but again, sometimes you choose to say maybe she was the best. From where I sit, that didn't appear to me to be an interview for a Chief Justice. I found it kindergarten in terms of the questions. The number of people who applied were surely only 13 for such a beautiful job. Something's wrong somewhere. Only 13 people applied. Secondly, when you look at the conduct of the interview, the questioning was so kindergarten. It wasn't like an interview to produce a Chief Justice. And even the people themselves, I didn't see anybody engaging in my thing, the level I would see in a Chief Justice, the kind of sophistication, the complexity, the depth, the philosophy, the jurisprudence, apart from the maverick, Philip Murugo, the rest were just ordinary judges or magistrates, really. I didn't see. So Out of these ordinary people, if you got my mother comment, I'm not seeing anything that is wrong. They are just, she was just like them. Maybe she gave us 1 month.
So
There's no standing person you could say that Manyora was there. He was so super. For him to have been left, there was something under the table. No, they were just the same. They're all colorless. And I love them. They are my people. Some of them are people I know well, and I respect them.
Yeah.
But they didn't appear to me to have what it takes to be to hold that high office. Maybe maybe my expectations are too high.
Oh, yeah. Probably that is the reason. But then here comes the president appoints that 4 judges, rejects the 6 of them.
Yes.
And says about they have integrity issues. And among the 6, 2 were sitting in the ruling. They were in the High Court ruling.
Yes.
Number 1, do you think the president violated his constitutional authority? Did he have the powers to reject those who have been recommended by the Judicial Service Commission?
There are people who believe so. Many people, in fact, a lot of people seem to think so. I am of a different opinion. There are many people who think the president is a conveyor belt, like they have been using the word. They think his is a mere formality. I choose to think differently. Maybe I'm in the minority, but I think differently.
Okay.
I think when my understanding of Article 166 doesn't seem to give the reading people are giving it. 166, according to me, says 2 things. Number 1, only the president will appoint judges, nobody else. Secondly, the president cannot appoint a judge from anywhere apart from a list recommended by the Judicial Service Commission. Those are the 2 cardinal provisions. And the word shall, which people say is mandatory, a must, applies to only the president being the appointing person and the recommended list. That is, to me, is the focus of that shall. Now, the Constitution does in my view, does seem to envisage a situation where, after the Judicial Service Commission has done its job, there is further scrutiny, and you find evidence in the appointment of the Chief Justice and the Deputy, because after the Judicial Service Commission, the president forwards the name to National Assembly, to Parliament, to do further scrutiny. That would seem to indicate that even these others, it is believed the president, using state organs and state agents like the intelligence, can do further scrutiny. And there will be nothing wrong with that. That's my understanding of my thinking. I could get it wrong. Many people think I'm wrong, by the way.
Well, I wonder why, Manyora, you never became a lawyer. You sometimes I like your arguments. But on the same note, did you have a chance to read the letter from the former GC, Willy Mutunga?
Yes, a bit of
regard
it.
to the same matter.
Yes.
What is your comment on that? It seems to differ with your opinion.
Yeah. He's in the majority. The majority seem to think I'm wrong. People really bash me on Twitter and elsewhere. But I stand my ground.
Okay.
That's my thinking. Because I tell them this. If it had been intended that you only the ritual of taking oath of office is what the president will participate in, why didn't the framers of the Constitution write, the Judicial Service Commission shall appoint judges who shall take their oath of office at the State House, and the president shall witness the same? Why didn't they say that?
Well,
why didn't they say that? Because let me tell you this. Why people like Willy Mutunga and Maraga and the rest of these people are wrong, they don't seem to understand who a judge is. I'm inviting you to my thinking that a judge is a goddess if she's a woman.
Okay.
A judge is a god.
Mm.
You get it? Judges are not ordinary men and women in the sense in which the responsibility presiding over the affairs and the fate of men is such a huge responsibility in traditional societies. These were gods and goddesses. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And if you read like West African literature, like Things Fall Apart, you find they are turned into spirits. They are not even human beings. They dress with masks, and you can't even, you might know this is Okonko presiding over a case of land and so on and so forth. That's what I'm saying. And therefore, a judge must be beyond reproach. A judge must be as clean as they are learned. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And therefore, every opportunity must be taken to scrutinize the judge before actual appending the signature to signal appointment.
Okay.
You get it? And that's why even after the Judicial Service Commission has done all the due diligence, has done very serious interviewing, the Deputy Chief Justice and the Chief Justice nominee are taken to Parliament for scrutiny, where the public is also involved. But because judges are many, you cannot take them to National Assembly. They will do nothing other than scrutinize. So it is left to the president to use state agencies to do further scrutiny and vetting.
Exactly.
And so the question becomes, if between the time somebody has been interviewed and the time the name gets to the president for appointment, something is found of integrity, what do you expect the president to do? To ignore and appoint, like people say, appoint?
So the thing is, these were recommended in 2019.
Yes.
Then why didn't he do it earlier to appoint the 34?
He did.
And they leave the 6 in 2019.
He did that, but Maraga was adamant. All the 41, before one died in an accident, all the 41 or none at all. Maraga said, even if you leave one out, we shall not accept it. He was in an interview today and he repeated the same. He was on a live TV interview, KTN. Yeah, he said, he was adamant throughout that is either all or none. So I think Mother Koome has come in and said, okay, let's take what we have as we fight for the remaining. Okay. It's different in style, yeah.
So, okay, now coming again on the same issue, do you think it's wrong to say he left those out because of the BBI ruling? Do you think he did that as other majority is thinking?
You see, there was a list. This list of people he didn't want to nominate, to appoint, came out before the BBI ruling. Okay. But what you are saying could have some sense, it could be maybe have something, because I understand the original list has changed. That some people have been included on the list who are not there before. There is the names he had rejected. That list has changed to include people who are not and to exclude those who are there. Some people who are there are not on the list on the 6 now. Some who are not there are now on the 6. So that could give credence to what you are saying. Perhaps he's annoyed with Justice Odunga and Justice Ngoge. It is possible. It is possible. Yeah. Like I said, we live in a real world of human beings.
Yeah.
If you cut a bit, you see blood
move
coming
away
out.
From perception, then we come to reality.
Yes.
Now, let's come now. How is this BBI ruling going to affect the general election? Assuming we are going to the general election, because it looks the chances of incorporating the BBI recommendation before the general election is not there. How do you see the coming election going to be influenced by this ruling?
You see, in my YouTube channel, Herman Manyora channel, I I invited Kenyans sometimes about 3-4 weeks or something like that ago.
Yeah.
To begin looking at the possibility of this election not being held next year. Again, as usual, typical of Kenyans, they really bashed me. But I've been asking them of late, and people are now beginning to see what I was saying. Ask them, can you see any preparations to convince you we have an election next year? Can you see the BBI confusion? Can you see the confusion brought by BBI? Do you see that whichever way this ruling goes at the highest appellate court, maybe the Supreme Court, whichever way it goes, it's going to mess the elections in some way or the other. It's going to affect the election one way or the other. So there's so much that is not clear. Such a time before an election, 2013, 2017, so much is evidently going on. Yeah, in the political parties, registrar political parties, in the courts, laws being moved here and there, changed to tally with what's going on, procurement by IBC, and many things are supposed to be taking place by now. None is going on. So you cannot reasonably expect to have an election that is seamless next year. So whichever way BBI goes, I can see this thing having, not necessarily to postpone the election, but it will have an impact. And maybe this is even deliberate. That's why I tell Kenyans, when you hear Manyora talk, please listen to him. This could even be deliberate to throw confusion into the works. So you insist election must be held in August next year, and you are playing into the trap set for you, so that you must have elections. Yes, here they are, but with so much confusion and disorganization, if anybody wanted to do monkey business, they have a field day.
Hello. I don't know what. Hello.
Yes, you are lit off air.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
You had. It's okay. Yeah, you are a bit off air. Yes, I can hear you clearly. Yeah. I was saying, whichever way the ruling goes, this BBI will have an impact on the general election, whichever way it goes. Namely, there's so much unpreparedness and a characteristic of what happens when there's an election so close. And then this BBI will have the impact of affecting the election by the confusion it will create. And I was saying this could be deliberate. So that when you push for elections, under whatever circumstances, you are falling into a trap. Maybe there's a trap being set for this. They think they will be celebrating that BBI has been stopped. When in fact it was intentional. So that you are getting to an election, the sensible thing to do is to push it back.
But then
you insist you must have it.
But
after
then
the arrangements that are so awkward, anybody wanting to manipulate the elections will do it.
But then to change the election date,
yes,
it's a big issue. It's in the constitution. It's not like during Moi's time when the president had the prerogative of announcing the date of election.
Yes.
Then we will need a constitutional amendment to change the election date, unless we are at war.
You know, that is true. But if you find yourself in a constitutional crisis, you just put your hands up and say, okay, the constitution doesn't provide for it. So there is the doctrine of extreme necessity in law. And if you found yourself in a situation where we can't have our election and we can only postpone the election by violating the constitution and not postpone is to allow a crisis to persist, then my little knowledge, without being a lawyer, is that we would head to the Supreme Court for an interpretation and guidance and advice on what to do. And they could say, you people where you are, you will have to hold an election in the next 12 months. And once they have pronounced themselves, that becomes law. Okay. It's not like there are situations which are not necessarily as contemplated or as stated in the law, in the case of, for example, war. But there can be situations that make it completely impossible. And the option is go into it and prepared with all the conditions, or seek a way to postpone. Those are things I invite Kenyans to hold a conversation around. Yeah.
So I know you have written a book about why some things are not done in Kenya. I've not been. I'm curious to get the copy and read about it.
I want to put it on Amazon. I'm putting it on Amazon soon. You'll get it.
Please do.
Yes, I'm putting it on Amazon.
So what are some of the things, how things are not done in Kenya?
I just say this country, things may not work unless we are mad enough. Yeah. My argument is everything is so bad, done so badly, that the only way we can get out of this is for Kenyans to be mad enough to demand the country they so much deserve.
Yeah.
In any sector, look at education, it has collapsed. Health collapsed. Everybody's stealing left, right. All the leaders are stealing left, right. They have no feeling for the people.
Yeah.
The poverty levels in this country are self-imposed. The number of people by the government's own admission in terms of statistics from its own National Bureau of Statistics that are collaborated by the World Bank statistics. Yeah. Over 50% of Kenyans live below $1 a day. You are in America. You know what $1 is?
I understand.
Those poverty levels are unacceptable in the 21st century. Over 80% of the people in Nairobi live in what people call slums, but they are not slums. A slum is much better than Kibera.
Okay.
So you look at the situation and you ask yourself, can it continue like this? If it continues like this, we will have worse. So I argue that Kenyans should get mad enough to reclaim their country for themselves.
Now, as you have stated, and what is really the problem in Kenya? Because even I've seen most of the argument people argue. We don't argue like we choose leaders, leading national leaders. Always we argue in terms of tribal kingpin. Yes. Mudavadi, we talk about the Luya nation. When we come to other people like Raila, they have their base in Luo Nyanza. Yes. When we talk, even this idea of Mount Kenya, and you come from Mount Kenya, is like as if the mountain has some talk. How can we harmonize to make Kenya a nation? I think we are more tribal groupings than a nation.
Yeah, you see, these things happen in the world and in history. It's not something you can go on table and negotiate and say, look here, gentlemen, tribalism is injuring us, because it's really standing in the way of progress.
Yeah.
But you cannot legislate, you cannot negotiate, you cannot sit down and discuss and talk about it in media. No. This is something that dies with time. Sometimes after many years, it loses taste.
Yeah.
Some things die like that. But in the case of this country, in the case of tribalism in this country, I have this strong belief that it will end when the Kenyan people almost get into a revolution. The revolution I talk about will come or may come because the people of this country have been pushed to the wall. The leaders are so reckless in the manner in which they handle state affairs. They are so blind and greedy in terms of how they rob the public. They don't care whether people are dying. There's money for COVID intervention. You must have heard about it and read about it. You want to cry.
Yeah.
You just wonder how much money does a Kenyan need. So these excesses will breed orientation. The people could come together, because once you see, and there people are getting there, you are sleeping hungry, you have not eaten for 3 days, then you realize it is your stupidity. Your stupidity of protecting your leaders on the basis of being from your tribe that is now making your children, none of them is going to school. And when they go to school, none of them are receiving what you can call an education. When you see you have not eaten for 3 days, and you look at a child who has not eaten, is terrible. This will force Kenyans into the realization
but
they are their own worst enemy.
This is where it comes to. If Manyora now starts that movement,
yes,
the first obstacle now you will get is your own people in the backyard. They tell you now, you cannot stop in the back. You know, it would be a protest against the president who happened to come from your region, that you are against your own brother.
Yes.
If now another person starts from, say, if he starts from Luyaland,
yes,
or will come back to you and say, you know, we are being fought by the lawyers. Then where are we going to have this national movement, as you are saying, you have envisioned, that we can start a movement for both?
It's not a movement. You see, you are getting it wrong. It's not a deliberate movement. I have said that will not work.
Okay.
Because our leaders, they have put us where we are. They know where we belong. They have put us somewhere. We cannot get out of that place. I'm saying it is a pain of sleeping hungry. The pain of seeing everything around you being hopeless. That hopelessness is what will breed hope.
Okay.
You get it? Hope in this country will come from the hopelessness. You get what I'm saying? I don't know if that's good English. That is what will end tribalism. Let me give you a good example, maybe as we end. Around the year 2008, at the beginning of the Grand Coalition government, Raila Odinga, I think, and William Ruto were in Kibra, or Kibera as it's popularly known.
Yeah.
The price of unga, maize flour, had shot by about 100%. Can you believe it? In the so-called Raila's bedroom, people were shouting, unga, 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 maize flour, maize flour. They were shouting at him, and he was there with Ruto.
Yeah.
It had gotten to a very bad point.
Yeah.
And it is that time the government then checked quickly the price of unga. And they stabilized, they subsidized it. And you could see unga in the shops with the government price, I think 50 shillings or something. I can't remember the details. It's quite a while back. Those kind of situations are what will lead to a revolution. It's a question of the hunger. You can't take it anymore. You can't be a Kikuyu or a Luya, and you have not eaten for 5 days. No, you get it.
Well,
so it will be those who are suffering against those who are occasioning people. I think it is this kind of narrative that Ruto was trying to create with Asla.
With the Asla Nation.
Yes, Asla Nation. He was trying to create that.
Okay. Well, I think our time is fast gone. I didn't know